morning, everybody. The Americans are quite good at knowing how to deal with recessions. They know the benefits of investing at governmental level and through economic stimulus, and at brand level through marketing investment. We, on the other hand, seem to prefer austerity of both the economic and the marketing variety. We almost revel in it. Now, while we can't do anything about government policy, unfortunately, we sure as hell can make the decisions that will grow our business. It is almost entirely up to us. There's a great quote from the late Sam Walton, who founded Walmart in America in 1962. Walmart is a fascinating company, the largest retailer in the world, and also the biggest private employer in the world, with, believe it or not, over 2 million staff. Its annual revenue is $464 billion, more than twice the GDP of Ireland. Anyway, Uncle Sam said, "I was asked what I thought about the recession. I thought about it and decided not to take part." Okay, that's a glib statement, and things are never that simple, but that's the kind of leadership I admire and the kind of guy I would like to work for. It sets the tone for the organization and exudes confidence which can be infectious and inspirational. Sam believed in advertising, as all great retailers do. All you have to do is open up the Sunday Independent every week to see this is also true in Ireland, but this is not the case in most other parts and sectors of our industry. So why is there so little belief in the effectiveness of advertising and so much skepticism when somebody points out the dangers of cutting back? Believe you me, I have seen this skepticism, because this is not the first time that I've made this presentation, and I've seen it in the eyes looking out at me. I know there's tons of advertising skeptics out there in the general public. We have all met them. How often have you heard your friends say, "Sure, advertising doesn't work," as they show you their latest must-have Samsung handset? But what I don't get is why the CEOs and finance directors of marketing firms, whose businesses have been built on the back of advertising, are so skeptical and don't have more belief. The answer, and the reason why marketing departments are not given more credit for the role that they perform, is because I believe the industry, the marketing industry, has misdirected its research budgets and not invested in credible modelling over a long period to establish the precise contribution that marketing makes to the revenue of their businesses. Most marketing departments are well able to tell you what their total brand communications awareness is. It almost trips off the tongue. But I wonder how many are able to say exactly what percentage of the overall sales revenue to their business is due specifically to marketing. By the way, it's a very easy question to answer as long as you're prepared to put the time and investment into it through econometric modelling. But investment in marketing analytics is still demoted in favour of softer measures which do little to quantify the impact of marketing on sales, apart from giving you all a warm feeling, or enable marketeers to optimise the mix of their investments. As a result of these practices, marketing departments have very little to defend themselves with when the knives are taken out and the slashing begins. That's my view. But I digress a little. Returning to the topic for this morning specifically, which is the danger of cutting marketing. I have 5 key messages that I want to share with you today. The first is, don't waste a good recession, and this is a goodie. Investing in marketing works. Share of voice has a direct impact on long-term on market share. Cutting back causes considerable long-term damage, and only 2 things in a business make money, and I'll come back to that. To support these points, I went in search of evidence that was A, quantifiable and robust, and B, from internationally respected organisations, including firms not operating within the industry where possible, to satisfy the skeptics. So let us begin. The first point, don't waste a good recession. Look, the market has fallen by 43% here in the last 5 years. In 2007, there was 1.2 billion spent in media in this country. This year it'll be 680 million. Media owners and agencies look at that and get very upset and almost burst into tears. Marketers, on the other hand, should look at these figures and smile like Cheshire cats. Why? Because it presents you with a fantastic opportunity. The number of brands being advertised is down considerably. That makes share of voice easier to attain, and media costs are down to record low levels, and that makes share of voice cheaper to buy. It's hardly rocket science. I was talking to somebody about this recently who said, that's all well and good, but consumers just aren't spending at the moment, so what's the point? And this is the greatest misnomer of our time. If the cruel people at the Marketing Institute hadn't banned me from using PowerPoint this morning, I'd be able to show you a chart, a beautiful chart, to prove that. But now you're just going to have to take my word for it. Consumer spending in Ireland on goods and services will be almost 81 billion euro this year. Okay, that's down from 92 billion in 2007, but it is almost exactly the same as 2005, when the Celtic Tiger was roaring along and we were all as happy as Larry. And that figure in 2005 was greater than 2004. So the spending this year by consumers is greater than it was in 2004. And the 2007 figure of 92 billion was what Alan Greenspan called irrational exuberance. It was a false figure. There is tons of stuff being bought and sold in Ireland every day. Lots and lots of spending consumers that you can steal away from your competitors, or they can steal away from you. I know there are exceptions and that some markets have been devastated, but the truth remains the Irish consumer has money to spend. We will be the largest spenders in Europe again this Christmas, according to a recent study by Deloitte. The largest spenders in Europe, which is quite remarkable. The other thing to bear in mind is that the worst is over. We are no longer facing into the abyss. As the IMF calls it, we're in a bumpy recovery, still a recovery. Despite the structural nature of this recession, we are now looking up instead of down. And recessions are always followed by expansions and prosperity. This is a fact that has remained an absolute constant throughout economic history. We are a greedy bunch, and once we sense an upturn, we release the purse strings. And we have purse strings to release. Household savings are at unprecedented levels in this country. So not only is there plenty of consumer spending to compete for now, it is the right time to invest in order to have your brand poised for the gradual recovery that we hope will begin in the next 12 months. Brands that wait until the recovery arrives will miss out, as I will cover later. So that's point number one. Don't waste a good recession. In the words of PricewaterhouseCoopers, businesses that maintain aggressive marketing programs outperform companies that rely more on cost-cutting measures. And that's not an advertising agency saying that. This brings me to point number two. Investing in a recession works. I will begin this section with another quote, this time from the Harvard Business Review. The rationale that a company can afford to cut back in advertising because everybody else is cutting back is fallacious. Rather than wait for businesses to return to normal, executives should cash in on the opportunity that rival companies are creating for them. Should cash in on the opportunity that rival companies are creating for them. There's lots and lots of opportunity out there that your competitors are giving you the opportunity to take. When I began my review of this issue, I was overwhelmed by the amount of evidence that is available on this topic, because this isn't the first recession of modern times. What was pleasing was the amount that came from companies and institutions outside our industry who have no axe to grind. Organizations such as McKinsey, PwC, Businessweek, Fortune magazine, Harvard, Wharton University, etc., etc. All the research leads to one point. The actions taken during a recession decide the future growth, stagnation, or decline of your company. It really is that serious. US research found that typically only 1/4 of companies invest during a recession, and 3/4 cut back. Of the quarter that invest, over 70% see a new and sustained high in their business for up to 5 years following the recession. On the other hand, less than a third of those companies that cut back, less than a third of companies that cut back will ever regain the market share and profitability lost during the recession. Those are powerful and frightening statistics. And here's a few more. According to research carried out by McGraw-Hill in the United States, 3 years after the 1981-82 recession, sales of companies that were aggressive recession advertisers had risen 256% over those who cut back and waited for the downturn to pass, and that waiting cost them dearly. Economic theory crosses borders and continents. It's not all about the States. In the UK, evidence from a major study by the IPA found that those who cut back on marketing in the last recession saw a decline of market share of 0.8%. Those who maintained their spend increased their market share by almost 1%, and those that increased investment enjoyed 2% growth over the following 2 years. The evidence is irrefutable. So now we know we need to invest, but by how much? Which leads us to point number 3. Share of voice has a direct impact on market share. Extensive work carried out by the IPA in the UK of 127 different brands found an almost perfect correlation between share of voice and share of market. It found that for every 10 points, you need to pay attention now because I've no PowerPoint, right? It found that for every 10 points that share of voice exceeds your market share, you can expect to gain 1 point of market share per annum. Let's put that a different way. If your market share is 20% and your share of voice in terms of your ad spend is 30%, then you should expect to grow your market share by 1 point over a year. However, the reverse is also true. If your market share is 20% and your share of voice is only 10%, you should expect to lose 1% market share per annum. And that could be the difference between profit and loss. So immediately you get back to the office, ring up your media agency and compare those statistics. By the way, I fully accept that it's not all down to spend. The strength of the creative work is key, the key actually, and sometimes very good creative work can surpass the need to spend to share of voice versus share of market levels. However, the fact is that very few campaigns are game changers creatively. You know, there are a few, and they're wonderful to see, but very few are game changers. Hence why there's such a strong correlation between spend levels and the outcomes that I've outlined already. So, which brings us on to the 4th point. Cutting back causes considerable long-term damage. Further work carried out by the IPA found that the short-term result of cutting expenditure looks attractive for a while, but hides the considerable damage being done to the longer-term profitability of your business. This is another key message. By reducing your marketing investment, you may increase profit immediately, but this is false profit. The internal momentum of a brand and the ad stock that has been built up over many years will carry most brands through for a while without any sales decline. And it's that time lag that's the real enemy of marketeers, because it gives the impression that management made a good call by reducing the budget. However, time catches up and the sales start to fall as that internal momentum starts to wane, and then the decline is often attributed to other factors. Oh, sure, our competitors are spending more, our consumer sentiment is down, or I have problems in the trade, and that happens all the time. Extensive modelling work has shown that reducing your marketing budget by 20% can lead to total profit decline of 15% by the 3rd year. Cancelling your marketing budget could force profits to decline by almost 60% in the same time frame. But you don't see that for a while. So why do 3/4 of companies ignore the evidence? There are 2 reasons really. Firstly, the evidence isn't widely known and is often poorly communicated. And historically, there's been no money invested in modelling to model the impact of decisions like this, as I talked about earlier on. There is another factor, human nature. We are wired as human beings to worry about the short term. And many finance directors live in the 90-day world of reporting on a quarterly basis. They cut back on variable costs, including marketing, in order to meet the profit expectations of their shareholders and financial markets. Rather than this predictable response, it would be great to see companies taking a braver stance and setting out an investment strategy instead of an austerity strategy with marketing at its heart. Austerity does little to win the hearts and minds of all stakeholders, as we know, both personally and corporately. Government also has a role to play here because there is a proven link between advertising and economic growth. Marketing is one of the most important industries in the country, and I don't think we often take credit and realise that. It contributes far more to our economy than many other industries, both in terms of the economic impact, but also the cultural impact due to the support that all of you give to our network of national and local media and the creation of fantastic Irish content, which is so important for an island nation like ours. McKinsey found that, believe it or not, these are extraordinary statistics. Advertising fueled 15% of GDP growth for the 20 largest economies of the world over the past decade, yet it only accounted for 2% of economic spend. That's extraordinary. 15% of GDP growth for 2% of economic spend. Those are stunning statistics, simply stunning. The World Federation of Advertisers also found that advertising speeds up the spread of innovation and is a multiplier of economic growth. Our view is that the findings of this analysis are so strong the government should introduce a scheme where advertisers receive a tax credit on incremental spend just for 1 year. This will give a boost to the economy at a multiple of 7 times the cost to the exchequer. And there is a precedent for this in other industries. A similar scheme was introduced in 2008, whereby companies received a tax credit of 25% on incremental R&D investment. And that's well established and has been working really well. So why advertising wouldn't be included is a mystery. Finally, we come to my last point, point number 5, and the most important thing to remember when fighting your corner with your boss. In the words of the great Peter Drucker, only 2 things in a business make money: innovation and marketing. Everything else is just cost. I do accept that certain companies don't have the cash flow to act on this advice, but there are many that do. It is also true to say that many companies do not look within their own business for the more difficult cuts before they cut the marketing investment, and this is a major mistake. It's good to see that I'm not alone in making this case, and I welcome the recent initiative of the media owners who joined together to promote their Advertising Grows Business campaign, which I believe will bring positive results. They certainly deserve it. In the meantime, let's be more optimistic. Let's inspire those we work with to do better and make a real difference, but not just in words, in our actions. Let's be more like Sam Walton. Thank you very much.